to be part of this Uluda Economic Summit. I have been attending the Davos Summit since 2007, and I have to tell you, being here this morning, I can't see any difference, so congratulations to the summit.
Well, that's probably, it's nicer than those probably. So, you know, we can talk for hours, but we apparently have a very limited of time. And you have a very interesting job running one of the top newspapers, one of the top groups in the world. And then you made a decision to go to Silicon Valley for almost a year. What prompted you that decision? That's the first question that I have. And then how did you manage running your job, being away, almost like, you know, 6,000 miles away from Germany? You must have a very loyal team back in Europe.
Honestly, to start with the latter, once I arrived in the Silicon Valley with a 9 hours time difference, I decided there's no chance to run the newspaper anymore, and I just had to rely on my people back home in Berlin. But to come to the real question, you know, our industry, the media industry, is a good example of what the digital revolution is doing, and I'm convinced is going to do to all industries. For decades, we cut trees, made paper out of trees, printed news on that paper, and sold it the next day at the newsstand. This worked for decades. This made us the biggest newspaper company in Europe, and we were very happy with it. But then came the digital revolution, and everything changed. Nowadays, the young generation, the new generation, they consume even more news than ever before, but they don't do it on paper anymore. So what we see, circulation is going down, eyeballs follow, money follows the eyeballs, so we see our business model is coming to an end. And then it was the idea of our CEO, Matthias Döpfner, who decided, why don't we go to that place where all this disruption, where all this innovation is coming from? And this is the Silicon Valley. This is these 28 kilometers from San Francisco in the north to Santa Cruz or San Jose in the south. 9 out of 10, the most successful digital companies are based in this area. This is where the innovation is coming from, and we wanted to go there to get an idea of what is creating this climate of innovation. Why is this area disrupting the whole world? Why is this area creating a new industrial revolution?
How did you organize your stay there to make the most out of it? I mean, did you go meet venture capital firm after venture capital firm? Did you go visit with the companies? Did you go into the business models? How did you kind of like set up your kind of like your incubation laboratory?
When we went there, we had actually no idea what we were going to do, because we didn't know anybody over there, and I was really afraid of, you know, how would the first day look like? That Monday we start. Will there be a telephone on my desk and will it ring? No. This is one of the secrets of the Silicon Valley. You know, you will recognize that all digitization can't substitute physical neighborhood. So when we arrived over there and we rented a house and lived and worked together, it was 3 managers of the Axel Springer company. On the first weekend, I got an invitation by our neighbor, Danny Shader, who was a founder, a CEO of himself, of Pay Near Me, which is a paying solution. And he told us, you know, we're having a founders brunch on the weekend. Why don't you come over and introduce yourself? And we went over there, and the first guy I met was a young guy, 17 years old, Katalin, a young student, actually from Germany. He started coding with 12. Now he was 17, freshman at Stanford University, and he was already having half a dozen of patents. Now he was studying computer engineering, and he was a kind of genius. We made him our student ambassador. We paid his tuition for the next 3 years for Stanford, and he had only one job: to bring us all his interesting fellow students every Monday at a certain time to our office so that we could talk to them. So what I'm talking about, it's about this physical neighborhood in the valley. At the end, the valley is a quite small area, and you can't avoid running into each other. And it's a typical behavior in the Silicon Valley that if you meet somebody, you have a meeting, you come out of that meeting with 5 new contacts. So at the end, I think only in the first like 6 or 7 months, we had over 350 one-to-one meetings. So everybody, this is part of the spirit of the Silicon Valley, wants to help each other because they know they will reach their goals, they will reach their solutions much faster and much easier if they exchange their experience with others. And at the end, there's this one thing why the Silicon Valley is unique. You've got this great triangle that is made by the Stanford University, that is made by the VCs, and that is made by the big tech companies. This is a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. This is a self-reproducing yogurt in a way, because, you know, Stanford University with its unlimited opportunities, unlimited financial opportunities as well, attracts all this talent. These big tech companies attract an awful lot of international talent, and then finally the VCs who give all that risk money. This is something that has not been replicated anywhere in the whole world, and this triangle creates this unique atmosphere of disrupting existing business models and simply being innovative.
I completely agree with you that kind of like that 3 pillars, the education, I would add probably Berkeley and Caltech to that triangle too.
Yeah.
And then the competitiveness of Americans.
There's one difference talking about Berkeley and Stanford. Why is Stanford so much more innovative than Berkeley? Because Stanford leaves the intellectual property to the students. So the incentive actually to become an entrepreneur, to invent something, is much more given in Stanford than at any state university where the intellectual property belongs to the university. That's why the Google algorithm comes from a university like Stanford.
You kind of jumped into my next question. So talking about universities, when they looked at the top 10 universities 100 years ago, number 1 was Heidelberg, number 2 was Sorbonne. There was not a single American university. Now, pull that forward 100 years ago, when you look at the top 10 universities, there's not a single European university there. It's even not Harvard, number 1 anymore, it's Stanford, and it goes like that. So do you think that Silicon Valley will not be replicated anywhere else in the world?
Honestly, I think the digital revolution is all about technology. And one of the things I'm criticizing in Western Europe, I'm criticizing in Germany. What really made us big, for example, the car industry in Germany, was our passion, was our love for technology. 100 years ago. This is where, you know, the technology, the industrial revolution really started in Great Britain and the car industry in Germany. And this has vanished. If we are talking about technology nowadays in Germany, first of all, we always talk about the risks, not the chances. And this is very different in California. This is very different in the United States. This is very different in the Silicon Valley. It's a cultural thing. I think most of the climate that is creating this climate of innovation has to do with cultural things. So when we came back from the Silicon Valley, it was not the really big thing, the next big thing we were bringing home, but all these cultural learnings. Why are they different? And the one and most important thing to me is this passion for technology, that they see technology as a chance and not as a risk. Just to give you one example. On October 1st in 2012, and we were over there, the self-driving cars done by Google, invented by Google, were allowed on the highways in California. Self-driving cars. There was a press conference, and there was the governor of California, and he was then asked, what is going to happen? What is going to happen if there will be an accident with one of your Google self-driving cars at a traffic light? Who is going to be responsible? Is it going to be Google? Is it going to be the car manufacturer, or is it the driver? So the governor, as a politician, he said, well, we have to find a legal solution for that. There was Larry Page, one of the founders of Google, on the stage as well, and he answered, I tell you one thing, when our self-driving cars will be on the street, there won't be any accidents at traffic lights anymore. But then Sergey Brin, the other founder of Google, he said, I tell you one thing, when our self-driving cars will be on the street, there won't be any traffic lights anymore. And this gives you an impression of how much trust and how much passion for technology there is within the Silicon Valley.
That's very true. That's very true. So kind of expanding on that same question, when you look at the models that comes out of the United States, they're mostly sometimes Me Too models. And then you see here and there some very unique, innovative ideas. But all the most interesting ideas, like the Ubers and Snapchats and what have you, they always come out of Silicon Valley. So do you think that when is that Me Too model could kind of transform into a uniquely, completely innovative model in the rest of the world?
We had a lot of visits by German startups. I think about 30 or 40 German startups were coming to the Silicon Valley while we stayed there and were visiting our house. And I always asked the founders, I always asked these young CEOs, what is your background, what have you been studying? 95% of the German founders would say, I've got a business background, I studied economy or whatever. If you ask the same founders in American student startups or whatever, 95% would answer, I'm a computer engineer, I'm a computer science. So again, it's the big difference. It is all about technology. It's finding a technological solution for a problem you want to solve. And it's not about having old business models which you try to get over a technical solution. And I think this makes the difference. At the end, these guys in the Silicon Valley, they do what a tech guy, what a techie has to do. They code. They simply do create codes, they do programming, and then they see what's happening to it. And we can't stop it, even if we say, some things are probably threatening to us, some things, we don't feel comfortable talking about all that data collection that's happening right now. But at the end, we have to recognize what's happening in the digital world is going to change our lifestyle, is going to change our habits dramatically. And right now, we see something like a digital revolution within the digital revolution. And this is the transition from the desktop computer to mobile. The mobile internet is going to do to the internet what the internet did to the rest of the world. It's going to disrupting the internet as we have been knowing it till today. The mobile internet gives us so much information about the single user, so much data. Your smartphone is your new black box. And being able, with all these data, with all this information, with broadband, with cloud computing, to analyze this data means you can make predictions about what people want to have, about what people are going to do, and to connect with now as well all these devices is going to change the whole world.
And how did the Bild change after your visit to Silicon Valley? What did change in your company? And are you going to go back there again? Are you going to do another 12-month stint there?
Actually, before we left for the Silicon Valley, I knew that our planet is not really flat. But the experience we made in the Silicon Valley changed my map totally. I'm convinced that many of these new developments, many of these applications are coming much faster than we have probably anticipated it. The United States is ahead, I would say 2 years ahead of us regarding their technological situation, and the Silicon Valley is another 2 years ahead of the rest of the United States. So living in the Silicon Valley is like living in the future. You see what's happening. I mean, 3 years ago, and Begüm was talking about Uber, about Netflix. They were all around at that time already. Another application called OpenTable. I couldn't explain to my secretary at that time that it is a normal way, if you want to make a reservation in a restaurant, that you simply can call a restaurant. She wouldn't understand, because she would use for 2 years already an application called OpenTable, where you never call a restaurant again, but you go on the website and you see which table is free, when do you want to have it, and you can already order your meal. seeing what's happening with Starbucks, and I don't know if you've ever tried the Starbucks application in New York.
The one that you order before you go in and then they prepare it for you?
It's actually, when I'm in New York, I'm always the last one who wants to pay with physical money. So what does it mean for Starbucks that everybody is using the Starbucks application? In the back end, Starbucks can see in an automated way for every consumer if, for example, he is approaching a Starbucks coffee shop. As long as he's approaching and coming in, that's fine. And they know everything about his habits. They know when he's coming and they know what he's consuming over there. It's becoming interesting if he passes the coffee shop. In an automated way, in the back end, they see, oh, he's not coming in. Usually he joins the coffee shop right now. So they will send him a personalized information, advertisement. It's your lucky day today. You not only get your cappuccino, but you will get a croissant additional for free. Automated, personalized. He doesn't react. He's even crossing the street and approaching McDonald's. Worst case for Starbucks. Then he will get the advertisement and get the information. It's your lucky, lucky day. Today, everything is free for you. Your cappuccino and your croissant. What does it mean for our world, for the media world? This concept we lived on for the last 100 years, one size fits all, is over. We know about the behavior of our customers. We know what our users are looking for. The average American user is grabbing for his smartphone 160 times a day. Only 2 times to actually make a telephone call, 158 times to actually look up content. So people are looking for more content, they are consuming more content, and we know what kind of content they are consuming and what they want. We can predict when they want it, we know in what context they are. If they are in Turkey, if they are in Germany, what time of the day it is. So what we have to do is we have to change the brand. We have to reinvent the brand. We have to understand that the way we did it for decades is over. Technology is now a big part of our daily business. Technology is a big part of our workflow. We had to change the whole organization. We had to change the whole workflow. We had to change the kind of people.
Was there a lot of resistance from the organization?
Of course there was resistance. I started this transformation when I was still in the Valley. I asked a couple of colleagues to come over and we formed a transition team. And then, that transition team was preparing the necessary steps. And that transition team was meeting for 1 year, every day in the morning, and agreeing on what are the steps we want to reach today. At the end of the day, there are people that you can't convince. There are people that actually then have to leave the brand. But looking back now, and we have been going through this transition now for nearly a year, it was a very successful transition because we became the #1 digital brand as well. And we succeed as well in implementing new business model within the traditional brand.
Was your idea to improve the efficiency and productivity, or to improve your top line? So, or both? How did you kind of go for the transformation?
It is all. First of all, you have to see how are we going to transform from printing news on paper to conquer all these digital surfaces. How are we going to conquer the smartphone? What do we have to do on a tablet? The most important thing was to change the mindset of people. That people started to understand what's new. It's not about living towards a deadline at the end of the day, but that we have to deliver content all day long. We have to understand that things people do first time in the morning is if they wake up, they grab for their smartphone. They want to see what's happening over there. We have to understand that we don't meet our customers in a physical way anymore. They don't go to the newsstand in the morning and ask for a newspaper. They live on social platforms. They grow up on social platforms. For them, the virtual world is the real world. So we have to be there where our customers are. This means the brand has to be on Facebook. The brand has to be on Twitter. In Germany, Twitter has 28 million followers. Facebook has 28 million followers. This is amazing. This is amazing in a population of 80. Altogether, Facebook has a population of 1.4 billion people being on that social platform. If Facebook was a country, it would be the third largest country in the world after China and India. And this is a reality we have to recognize, and if you want to be successful in this new digital world.
If Starbucks came to Turkey and launched the same application, people probably could figure it out, go walk around Starbucks until they get a free offer. Probably the application will fail. What do you recommend for emerging markets like Turkey to kind of catch up that revolution? Like, should we really educate our children from the age 5 to learn to become coders? I mean, is this something as dramatic as making that kind of like a mandatory education thing?
First of all, regarding the digital world, you are, with your demography alone, perfectly prepared. Because the new digital world is a world for the younger generation. And you know, in Germany, we've got the wrong demography. Our demography looks like this. And this is not really prepared for the digital world. Your demography is like this, so that's perfect. If we are talking that mobile is the most important trend coming within the next 24 months, mobile is going to overtake desktop usage of the internet. It's great to be in a country where everybody is mobile already. So I think, as we heard before on the panel, there are some technical necessities, like you have to have broadband, because otherwise it doesn't really, it's funny to use all this content delivered on these devices. But at the end, it's not you educating and teaching the young generation. I give you a promise, the young people will teach you and educate the fathers and grandfathers how to do it.
That's right. So in closing, what would you like to leave us with? What do you want to kind of close your Silicon Valley experience running one of the most interesting newspapers in the world, and then kind of how you're changing, how the world is changing?
The most important thing is about the spirit, and I love listening to Begüm on the stage, because I know she spent so many years in the Silicon Valley, and you always recognize if somebody has been there, he has got this kind of infection about this creativity, about this risk culture, about going to limits, about dreams. You know, whenever they've got a dream, whenever they try to do something in the Silicon Valley, first thing they do not do, they don't look for money, they don't look for profitability, they look, can we create a solution for the whole world? And this kind of spirit is just amazing. Entrepreneurs are rock star. So the social currency in Stanford is not, are you a sports guy, are you coming from a rich family, but are you an entrepreneur? Have you found a company already? Virtually every student, while staying at Stanford University, has created a company in either way. And one of the most impressive things to me, coming from a culture where failure is something really bad. You know, if something goes wrong in a company like Axel Springer, we look somebody whom we can blame for being responsible for it, and then we're going to punish him. It's the opposite way in the Silicon Valley. Failure is a necessity for success. And it was always great to see when there was a pitch and you see these young people, they, with passion, they told you, you know, I've been working on this project for the last 2 years, and it failed. And the only message was, I will never do this mistake again. I made so much good experience. And this spirit, this risk culture, this creativity, to get this into our thinking, into our behavior, into our DNA, is the one thing I tried to do in my company in the last 1.5 years.
Thank you so very much for such an exciting conversation, and it was great to speak with you.
Thank you very much.